Hello, welcome back to At Home with Cici. I am at home and I am Cici, mama to three amazing humans, and among other things, a homeschooling parent. This is another video in this series of our home education do's and don'ts. So be sure to check out the playlist of all of those other videos. If you're subscribed, thank you. If you're not subscribed, please do. Like, comment, share the video, and let's get into it. Okay, so this one is about exams and testing in home education. Firstly, as in the UK, home education is the default. School is an opt-in situation. Therefore, the national curriculum and the mandatory testing and examinations that children are forced to do is not required in home education. If you don't want to do GCSEs and A-levels, you don't have to do. And that being said, if you do want to do them, you have to pay to do them. So my oldest, who is now an adult but was home educated through their secondary school years, we talked about it over and over and came to the regrettable conclusion that they should do the GCSEs because in the society that we live in, with the processes that exist, GCSEs are needed to do A-levels, which are needed to go on to study for a degree in whatever. My oldest thought they wanted to do a degree, so we thought we should do the GCSEs and A-levels. It was a complete waste of time. They taught themselves, essentially, all their GCSEs. They did 5 GCSEs, the main 3, maths, English, science, and then double science, and then Spanish as well, and they taught themselves Spanish. And they achieved great results in those GCSEs. And they spent less than a year doing that, which just goes to show how ridiculous, especially secondary school is, which is just 4 or 5 years of school that lead to doing the GCSEs. Everything you're doing in secondary school is so that you can eventually take the GCSEs. There's no enrichment, there's no engaged learning, there's no excitement, there's no passion in the learning. A lot of what you learn between years 7, 8 and 9 is just scrapped by year 10 when you make your GCSE choices. So it is just a complete waste of time. You can do your GCSEs in a year, as my autistic, dyslexic oldest child demonstrated to me and themselves. So GCSEs are not essential unless you want to take a path that requires in this current day and age at the moment you to do so. For example, if you want to go to university, you can't really get there without some form of graded test result. My middle child, he has a definite career path, or at least educational path in mind. So he is doing the GCSEs to go on to do A-levels in order to get where he wants to get to, and it's this very specific thing, and he's happy to do that. So that we're fine with. My oldest realized it was a waste of time, GCSEs and A-levels, because they've published 2 books, they've acted, they've traveled, they have founded a community interest company that they are the executive director of. They didn't need to waste their time doing GCSEs and A-levels. And if your child is not planning to go to university and they have another path, because that is completely valid to not go to university, if they have another path in mind, that these examinations that don't show a whole child's capabilities and personality and skills and passion and intelligence, they don't show that. If your child doesn't need to do those, they don't need to do those. You don't need to force your child to do them. They don't need to feel they need to do it. You don't need to do it. So GCSEs and A-levels are completely optional if you are home educating. If you're in school, they force you to do it. If you're home educating, you have the choice, and home education is the default. So essentially, when you opt into school, you're opting into taking GCSEs. That is all secondary school is leading up to GCSEs. They're teaching you not to learn, they're teaching you not to have knowledge, they're teaching you not to be inquisitive and curious and critical. They're teaching you to take a test so that you can go into the workforce or continue education, so you eventually go into the workforce and then incur loads of debt to pay back to the economy. Anyway, so GCSEs, A-levels are completely optional depending on what you want to do with your life or what your child wants to do with their life in this current state that we live in. Testing within schools, for example, SATs or SATs as we would call them, where the school tests children in year 2 and year 6 and then in secondary school as well to see where they're at level wise, so they can group them in the right place so they get the best teaching opportunities, which is complete nonsense. Again, is unnecessary, it's not essential, and is completely optional. Testing in general, A-levels, GCSEs, well, especially GCSEs and SATs, do not demonstrate anything about a child. They do not demonstrate, like I said, who they are, what they can do, what they're interested in, what their skills are, what their capabilities are, their intelligence, their curiosity, their love of learning, their interests. They do nothing to show you who or what a child is and can do. They do, however, cause anxiety, create fear, traumatize, belittle, demean, and dismiss children and their abilities by putting this huge pressure on them to perform in this test on this one moment in their life, this tiny moment on this specific day when they're in this specific mood. They might be feeling this way, something could have happened in their life, they're not ready, they haven't been taught how to absorb and hold knowledge, but they are expected to sit down for, I don't know, depending on the type of test, half an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours if it's an art exam in GCSEs, and prove that they know all these things and have remembered these things that the teacher shouted at them. And that is just ridiculous and completely unrealistic. There is no other time in life as adults where we are expected to demonstrate all this random thrown at us knowledge in such a short amount of time to prove ourselves. There's just nothing like that, unless you're doing obviously like a medical degree or a law degree where you've chosen to do that. You opted in yourself, nobody put you there. You opted in to learn these things and test these things, and you need to have all this knowledge, specific knowledge. Then of course that testing exists in that situation. But even for like a driving test, you take as long as you need to learn. You do the theory in your own time, and then you take the test when you're ready. The test is like, I don't even remember, half an hour, and then you're marked on your minors and your majors. If you get majors, then you don't pass. If you get minors, you're given a scope in which you can make a few mistakes, and then you're either given your license or not. And that's on your way to adulthood, or as an adult. In my case, I did it as an adult. And that, you're operating a huge death machine, essentially, and you're given more grace than children are in their exams. And the expectation is just so overwhelming, unrealistic, and detrimental to children's belief in themselves, self-esteem, view of themselves, and proof of their actual intellectual abilities. Emotional intelligence, creativity, all that stuff. I'm so against testing. Now, if you want to test your child in your home education environment or your homeschool, that's up to you. I think the sentiment remains, though, that test does not exemplify who they are or what they have learned, because it is one moment, specific questions, and a pressured situation. No matter how you present a test in home education, if you do it really, really sweetly and you say, let's just sit down and just answer these questions, sorry, you're still putting that child on the spot and asking those questions for you to then tick or cross if they got it right. But I imagine in a lot of cases, the way that home educating families or homeschooling families are testing their children are with just regular printout tests that exist within schools as well, where it's the same, do you know this, yes or no? And I just don't see how that really shows who a child is or what they're capable of or what they have learned, because it's such an unnatural way to demonstrate what you know. So an alternative to testing is, and what I think is really important in learning, is review, continual review. So if you, as the guide or the parent or the teacher, want to know where you are, or sorry, where your child is, what they've learnt, what they've held on to, their capabilities so far, their skills so far in their learning journey, I think the best way to do that is with review. So rather than teach, or present, or guide, give them all the information, and then at the end of the term or the end of the year or the end of the month, you do a test. Instead of that, continual review as you're learning allows you to see in real time and in real life where they're at and what they're capable of. So, for example, if you're learning times tables with your child and you want to know if they've retained any knowledge, then instead of at the end of the week or month or whatever, sit them down and ask them these questions or give them a paper for them to answer in pen or test them online. Instead of doing that, when you do one lesson, you end with a review, and when you begin the next lesson, you start with review. So you ask them what they remember from last time. Can you tell me this? Can you show me that? You can use the knowledge that you've learnt within a structured learning moment and take it outside of that to see if they're using it in real life. That's a more natural way to see if that learning has been retained, rather than sitting them down and no matter how kindly you do it, there is still pressure that they will feel because they're being asked direct questions and they know they're expected to give an answer. When it's natural, conversational, within the day, within your life, you'll see if they've held on to that learning. And it doesn't always have to come from you. Sometimes they just show that they have retained this learning when they themselves implement that learning or demonstrate that learning in their daily life. For example, if they said, oh look, there's 2, 4, 6 cars, they've shown that they remember 2, 4, 6. They are using that learning in real time, in their real life. They are retaining it and they are using it, rather than checking if they remembered what you said so you can give it a tick. So it's really about review and embedding learning into the everyday, rather than separating school time with lifetime, which is, I think, what most home educating families want to do, is not separate that, but embrace the idea and the truth that learning is life and life is learning. Testing is unnatural. Conversation, discussion, playing and observing is the best way to see where your child is at, so you can continue to best support them and give them everything they need to keep excelling. Testing is, I'm sure you remember, a horrible feeling for most of us. So just remember, you were that child once. Is there another way to do it? Do you really need to put them through that? Or because you've taken them out of school or you've never opted into school, you know that is something you want to stay away from. So remind yourself why you've done that, and remind yourself all those little things that school meant to you and did to you, and try and do something better for your child. Now, with that being said, there are some children that actually love a test. And I am not not one of them. I love quizzes, but I love it as I just love it as a recreational activity. When it's a test where like I know I'm being judged or graded on it, then it becomes pressurized and unenjoyable. So there are some children that actually just do like it. They like the competitiveness maybe with themselves. They like just the answering questions and proving that they know something. But like school, it is not for everyone. So if your child does not respond well to testing, don't test them. Just bring it into the everyday. So just to round up, GCSEs are not compulsory. Going to school is not compulsory. Education in life is compulsory. We should all be learning every day. But yeah, school is not compulsory. So school processes and activities and traditions are not compulsory either. You don't have to test your children. Just observe them, be with them, talk to them, and let them show you themselves. All right, sorry for all that waffle. That was really fast. I need the toilet. So I hope you have a lovely day, whatever you're doing, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Like, subscribe, comment.